I'm going to try to add some commentary to this run, but the speed tech in 4 goes by so fast it's hard to keep up. We'll put our points into acrobatics because it helps us with a couple of puzzles, making them go much faster. This is the wizard class, who is twice as slow as the thief, but I think the wizard is quite fun. He gets to use a lot of interesting speedrun tech. The first bit of tech is actually using undocumented keystrokes to cast spells, which can be done on a small number of screens in the game. On the next screen, I'll use Shift-Y to cast Levitate. And on the screen after this, I'll use Shift-W to cast Fetch, which breaks out of a script. Normally, you get locked into a conversation with Katrina, which we're just going to skip. Okay, here's the Cliff's Notes version of what you're about to see. You can cast juggling lights to reveal the pattern on the squid stone. Normally this is temporary and you're supposed to use the will of the wisp to solve it permanently. However, if your animation cancel juggling lights with another spell, it never goes away and you can solve the puzzle without ever getting the wisps in the first place. And once you finish the puzzle, you can actually moonwalk slightly in order to make it to the next screen faster. And now we're going to walk into the swamp for no reason. Yeah, it's a weird thing. We actually discovered that if you walk into the swamp and then come back, and then climb out of the swamp, the game speeds up for the entire rest of the run. We don't know why it works exactly, but it's permanent. You'll see the effects of it as we start running through the forest. Even though the trick takes some time to set up, I think it saves something like a full minute for every 10 minutes of gameplay. It's kind of insane. Well, we're approaching town here, and we do need to do a few things. First of all, let's go shopping. We need 3 cloves of garlic, we need 1 pie pan, and 1 trail ration. The garlic to pacify 2 different monsters, including Baba Yaga, the pie pan because we still need to bake her damn pie even after all these years, and the trail ration because we do need to visit Dr. Cranium. Oh yes, more speedrun tech. You can actually activate 2 objects at the same time in this hallway, so we activate the door and the trap at the same time. Like so. This primes the trap and is now ready to be sprung, and the Antwerps are already going. We're still at the mercy of the Antwerp timing, and it can sometimes take several seconds for one to appear, which it does here. After that, we do this again. We can activate 2 doors at the same time. So we unlock the door to Dr. Cranium, and then we wait for the maze door to actually fully open so we can solve that too. Once both have been done, it's just a matter of inserting the key into the now unlocked door, and off we go. From Dr. Cranium, we get the glide spell, which is necessary, and 3 empty flasks, which are also necessary. The glide spell is the fastest way to traverse the swamp, which is where we're heading to now, and we need the flasks to contain the grugu as well as the bone meal we'll be making the pie with. Our next stop is the location of the second ritual. The glide spell gets us across the swamp the fastest out of all of the methods, but the wizard is still slower than the thief overall because he has to contend with 2 Chernovi here instead of just 1. Weirdly enough, there's a glitch you can perform here, but only on the CD version of the game, where you can swap between them in a specific way in order to kill both of them faster, but you can't do that on the floppy version, which is what this is. We're running the 1.0 floppy disk version instead of the CD-ROM version because it has access to one particular skip, which the CD version fixes. It's called the Good Boy skip, and we'll be getting to that later in the run. For now, we are heading back to town. We need to find a doll, we need to get drunk from the cask of Amontillado, and we need to pay a visit to the good doctor. I've been passing the time to evening, and I'll be passing it to nighttime as soon as I enter the gates. I need to go to the inn, and for routing purposes, it just makes sense to go there at night. Once I levitate up to my room, I'm going to use another undocumented keystroke. If you rest on the bed and press G, you instantly pass the time exactly 24 hours. For some reason it's not consistent, so I had to check via the menu, but I've now confirmed that it did work and I am on the night of day 2, which means that I can visit Dr. Cranium twice in a row for the 2nd and 3rd visit. For some reason, getting the rehydration solution you need for a puzzle requires visiting him 3 times. I don't know why. So we're just going to do that here. We'll see this cutscene, then leave, then rest until after midnight. This means that we'll be on day 3 and we can talk to him for the 3rd and final time. To get the rehydration solution, we need to engage with the game's copy protection system. In the manual, you'd see a whole bunch of formula, and he'll ask you for one, and you have to input the proper ingredients for that formula to unlock it. I have memorized about 1/3 of the formula. I really should memorize the rest. It would be faster than just looking it up on the cheat sheet every time. There are 2 things that we still haven't found any skips for. One is we need to rehydrate this domovoi right here, because if you don't, you can't get the doll from the cupboard in the inn. Just like in Quest for Glory 3, wizards still need to pick up the staff in order to complete the game. To get the staff, you still need to save Tanya, and to save Tanya, you need to pick up the doll. To get the doll, you need to rehydrate this Domovoy so the other one will let you take the doll. It's just that simple. The mega skips we have access to do not actually bypass most of the wizard stuff, unfortunately. This is why the thief class is twice as fast as the wizard. They don't have to deal with any of this nonsense. You'll see that tomorrow when I upload my new thief world record. It's night and day. The other thing we haven't found any skips for is we need all the rituals to complete the game. Even if the wizard found a way to bypass all of the rituals in the cave, you still need the rituals themselves just to be able to teleport in there. But we are about to pick up the doll using another piece of speedrunning tech. Normally, picking up the doll locks you into a small animation, but we can cancel out of that by issuing a move command at the bottom of the screen. Then we can run away while the doll is still in the cupboard, which is pretty fun, and we can just leave. We also need to visit the gnome a couple of times during this run, so I'm doing the first one here. We do need to do Baba Yaga's quest for this. We need to visit her and get the good humor bar and give it to him. That's the only way to make a certain note appear, which you need to read in order for Ad Avis to capture you and send you to the dungeon. We actually have a mega skip that gets you into the dungeon whenever you want to, but due to the routing, it's actually faster for wizards to just do it the normal way. You'll see the mega skip tomorrow when I do the thief run though. Oh, and check out the Wraith Mount right here. Wraith Mounts actually prevent monsters from spawning in the forest for a while, so we tend to route the game so that we visit those screens on occasion. Most routes can still run into monsters on occasion, but we keep it to a bare minimum. There's another speedrunning tech on this screen. If you drink from the fountain before this text box pops up, you can actually move during the cutscene. This lets us slide away instead of standing up to leave, which saves a couple of seconds. We're here in the garden because we need all of the spells in the game before Tatiana will show up to give us the final ritual. Okay, it's time for the most fun piece of speedrunning tech in the whole run, I think. It's Baba Yaga. Normally, there's a quest here before you can actually enter her hut. You need to talk to Bonehead, you need to give him a hat, it's very involved. It's a long quest, and instead of doing all of that, we're just gonna skip past it. The laser skulls will zap you if you don't do the quest, unless you animation cancel on this corpse, which gets you past, if only barely. You can now make the pie and start doing the process of entering Baba Yaga's hut. There's also a very small set of pixels right here where we can bake the pie, even get zapped while doing so, but it bypasses the whole quest and we can enter her hut. That whole thing was the new version of the skip. There's an old version that I have to do when I re-enter her hut. I have to visit her 3 times because of script reasons. And for the second and third visit, you have to do a different skip. This one, the corpse walk, doesn't get you far enough. So we need to do something else, and it's hard to explain. You need to be talking to Bonehead while you're turning around. If you do it right, you can get zapped mid-conversation, which overrides the script, and you can actually enter her hut again. Normally, getting zapped will actually prevent movement for several seconds as you recover. By cancelling out of dialogue, you can skip it. We'll do it again here. We talk to Bonehead mid-turn, we get zapped, and we can move past. This trick has a very serious threat of soft locking if you do it wrong, so this is always a bit of an antsy part of the run to me. Well, we move from one big skip to another. This was actually the first mega skip I ever found in this game. It's called the Good Boy Skip, because it involves a dog. Well, a wolf, but close enough. We need to visit Magda the fortune teller, but the camp is usually locked off from us until day 5. We usually have to save Davy here before they will let us in. But instead, we're gonna do some out-of-bounds shenanigans, which is rare in this game, so it's nice to be able to show it off. If you hold down enter, you can lag the game, which lets you go out of bounds on some screens. Once you're out of bounds, you can click to go back in bounds at exactly the right time, which sets you up for the wagon. Then you have to click on the wolves to adjust your facing in order to be able to enter the wagon. That's why it's called the Good Boy Skip. The wolves are instrumental in letting you turn around. It's a very fun skip, but only wizards get to see it these days, since an even bigger mega skip was found by SwimFan a while back. But at least this skip is still useful for wizards who can use it to avoid the entire Davy plotline, which is pretty good. I don't know why, but they actually fixed this skip in the CD-ROM version of the game by changing this screen. I don't think they even knew that the skip was here, but the changes they made it impossible to do, which is really unfortunate. And again, we have to leave and re-enter the wagon a couple of times before the final flag is set and we can actually talk to her about Erana and learn the Destiny spell. This is what lets us get the staff, which is what we need to beat the game. We also need to set the game back to nighttime for the rest of the run, so I'm rest running for 60 minutes a pop here until nightfall. I'm also going to be touching a Wraith Mound right here to prevent monster spawns for a while, just to ensure that I don't get any. Now we have to deal with the fairies, and it's kind of weird and fairly involved. Instead of grabbing the staff and suffering through a long cutscene, we cast Trigger on the staff. We still learn the Ritual of Release spell from Tatiana, but we can instantly leave the screen afterwards. However, there is a bug in the game. It doesn't set the flag which says you've actually watched the cutscene, so you still have to see it when you get back. So how does this save time? I'll explain when we get back there. There's more to talk about. There are two pathways through the castle. We're gonna take the eastern path. That's the route that takes us to the bat-filled staircase, and unlike the CD version, you can't cast Calm on them to bypass the entire encounter, but that's nothing a little fire can't cure. My bird is singing up a storm back there. I may have to re-record parts of this again. Even though there are 4 bats on this screen, you only need to kill the one that's directly in your way in order to make it past their hitboxes, and then you can just leave. There's actually a little skip you can do there, but it's slightly slower than fighting them, so unfortunately we don't get to see it. The castle is nobody's favorite part of this game because it's just a maze. There are a couple of fun things like this you can do here, but they're few and far between. For the most part, you're just running in a straight line to where you need to go. It's boring. There are some tricks you can do with the castle doors. It's called Fast Castle, because the doors in here are weird. I'm not going for it in this route though. The wizard run is quite long, and I didn't want to reset all the time. It's basically frame perfect. And here is Tanya, and why we needed the doll, because she wouldn't trust us until then. Finally, we can talk about Arana's staff, talk about returning her to normal, and, you know, a life for a life. We finally get our hands on the staff, and we can start moving on to the endgame. Hey, bird. We now go to deliver the good humor bar we got from Baba Yaga to Punnybones to lift his curse. Like I said, the Mega Skip could actually skip this part, but it's actually faster to just do it since we're already in the neighborhood. And now we go to use another undocumented hotkey. There are so many. Instead of G, we press H in order to sleep to the next day instantly, instead of sitting through a long animation. I don't know why these hotkeys are here. I think they were just debug codes that they forgot about and just left in, because they're sure as heck not in the manual or anywhere. The only reason we found out about them is because they're in the game code. We once again rest run until nightfall. It's called that because we're running while resting for 60-minute increments. It's faster than just standing still and resting somewhere, if only just. Right, I promised to talk about why the Tatiana thing is faster if you cast Trigger. It's because there is this trick that you can do that I'm safety saving for. You can click on the staff and instantly, within 1 frame, issue a move command. If done exactly right, you skip the cutscene by walking off screen. You don't learn the Ritual of Release spell by doing that, which is why we cast Trigger first. By the way, we're supposed to fight Tatiana here. It's supposed to be a wizard duel where you cast the staff and then cast resistance, and instead of all that, I think we're just gonna pick up some rocks. And then go over here. Yeah, for some reason she can't touch you from here, so you can just kill her with impunity. Screw your duel. Give me my loot. Ah, that feels good. We finally have the very last ritual we need, and now we can move on to the endgame, at 13 minutes in. If I was a thief, I'd be at about 6. But who's counting? Oh, guess what? Time for another undocumented hotkey! Yeah, we can just skip this whole victory speech by pressing Shift-P to cast open, and Adavis is just gonna stand there staring at us as we go. Bye, nice to meet you! I have a theory that a lot of these keys were implemented early on in development because you can only do them on 3 different rooms, and I think they were just left over from when they wanted to add hotkeys for general spell casting, and then they just thought that was too much of a bother, so they stopped. It's a good thing they forgot to remove them though, because it does allow us to cast spells when we shouldn't, like at the cave entrance when we skipped Katrina's welcome speech, and in the dungeon with Adavis just now. I don't know, it's weird, but I'm glad it's there. Right, we're moving on to the endgame now, and Wizard, again, unlike the other 2 classes, have to do the rituals. I actually found a skip for fighters and thieves. If you have the grappling hook, you can just climb up to the final room. You don't have to do the rituals first. This was fixed in the CD version. Actually, I think it was fixed pretty quickly with a patch. This game was notoriously buggy when it launched. Fortunately for us, some of the bugs are advantageous, so 1.0 is a good thing. Speaking of bugs, we don't need the book down there. It has a ritual, but we don't need to get it, so we can just skip past this whole screen. Usually you're supposed to fight that beast, we can't be bothered. This screen is actually why we chose acrobatics. Once we finish this ritual, a cage will close down on us, and we usually have to do a fair amount of spell casting to get out of it, but with acrobatics we can just jump out and it's instant. Acrobatics, incidentally, would also help us traverse the next ritual screen if we hadn't found an even better way to skip the entire area. The first part is done normally, we just climb up the way we're supposed to, but once we get up here we will cast Levitate in order to set ourselves up exactly right. Then we cast Levitate again, and then cast Levitate a third time while we're setting up the ritual. The Levitate sparkles will appear as if the spell went off, even though it didn't. The ritual will then go off and complete the way it normally does, and voila, you're out of bounds. Blink and you'll miss it. Okay, the next room has absolutely no skips, so instead I'm going to bitch about it. I think this was one of those late in development kind of things, rush jobs, because nothing in this room works the way it should. It seems hard-coded in really weird ways. They even disable all spellcasting, all the movement stuff you could ordinarily do you can't do in this room. Every single thing I've tried to do to break this room in some way results in an instant crash. It's so finicky and so fiddly, you're just forced to do it normally. I'm not going to put up a bounty for this room because only the wizard really sees it anymore, and I wouldn't wish this room on my worst enemy. By contrast, there's the next ritual room. Watch carefully. This is intricate. Yeah, turns out you can just activate the altar from the starting location, so we just do that, and then leave. I don't know. Final room. This room, on ScumVM, has no tech. There are some small things you can take advantage of in the DOSBox version, but ScumVM will occasionally patch things they deem to be rather nasty bugs. And I get why they chose to patch this one, because if you do the tech and do it wrong, which even a casual player might accidentally do, you can softlock the game. It sucks for speedrunners, but it's not a big deal, it's only a 2-second save at best. The only thing we do here is, once we cast the spell at Adavis, we use the inventory item, the staff, instead of the spell. This saves a small amount of time. Time ends when you click the staff on the crystal and free Erana. A 1710. And I'm actually quite happy with this one. It wasn't a perfect run. The Antwerps in Cranium's hallway took a few seconds to appear, that's RNG. The rehydration formula was not one of the faster ones. I missed the frame-perfect input at Baba Yaga's twice, which cost me a few seconds. The endgame was a little sloppy with a few minor input flubs. I also didn't go for Fast Castle, which is a not quite frame-perfect but still pretty close to it piece of tech, which, if you mess it up, or even if you just get unlucky, will actually lose you a significant amount of time. And I didn't pull off a piece of tech called Schrodinger's Squidstone, which meant that I had to run down the slippery slope instead, but that one's almost impossible to pull off on ScumVM, so I'm not too bothered. A sub 17 time is certainly possible, but I suspect I won't grind for it. It's been a lot of work grinding all the strats for this one, and it's world record by over 3 minutes anyway. Tomorrow, well, let's just say it'll be a shorter video than this one. And with that, I think we're done. Right, Bird?